it exactly because you might have it as a drop-down menu or something like this. Then if you've made so many changes to this table and you don't really want to have those changes anymore, or there was, like, you think you've messed up a little bit, you can always go to standard and it will bring back everything as by default in Revit. Now we don't have the wall that I changed here, the IFC wall, it's again IFC slab, so everything will be back to normal. What's important to know is that here we are changing the mapping for every Revit category. Let's say for all the walls, for all the columns, for, like, once you change it here, it will be changed for the whole category. Sometimes maybe you want certain elements to not be exported, like not the whole category, but a certain column or a type of column. I can show. Yeah? Where are you right now?
Yeah, there's the version for Revit 2025. We just the drop-down menu for apartments.
Yeah. Like, it's important for you to know that that's where you can change it. We didn't change anything. I just explained how to bring it back to standard. It doesn't matter. Today, we're just showing you where you can edit that, not for a particular case. So it's okay if you didn't save that or something. Okay, another thing that it's important to note here before closing this mapping table is that when you want to, you can also save this here for use in another project, let's say, and you can also load something that you have already used in another project, and then you want to use it here. And I showed you with the standard, you just bring back the default setting that Revit has.
Question. Now for the 2025, it's showing that by category. So what is the default option for that?
Yeah, you mean if you've changed something and then...
No, now here it's showing by category, which is the default. So what do they mean by that? Is it the IFC slab or what type of that?
Well, I cannot see it exactly. It would be nice if I see it. Maybe you can ask me afterwards again about this mapping table. If it's, you probably have an option to assign it, and then something that says by default, which might be for the L, or I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you want to reset in 25, you have like a clock symbol at the corner, and that will reset it back to the default. But I'm sorry, I need to see it to be able to answer that. Yeah. Yeah, so if we are done with checking how it works with the category, you can click here OK or X, it doesn't matter, we didn't make changes. Now if you want to change that for a certain element, like for example, we wanted to edit that for this wall here, you can go down and there is this export to IFC, and it is set by type. What means by type is that by this wall type that you've used here, which is basic wall 24 centimeters, if you have set this type to be exported, it will be exported. But you can change this here, not let it by type, but make it yes or no. And if you made it no, this particular wall will not be exported into your IFC file. Same, or for example, if you go to edit type, we can see like maybe better here, then you can also change the setting for the type. It's similar to what was here, export to IFC, but now is export type to IFC, and you can leave this default or change it to no, and then the whole type will not be exported. Okay, so that's how you change if you need to not export something for the type and for the instance. I think you all understood this. In 25, this should be the same. And now we're going to see maybe how to check the parameters and how to add one parameter. What usually is required in the, I can go back to this link and you can see like usually from the IFC documentation, it's required that the wall, for example, has this pset wall common property set, and into that there should be, like, let's say acoustic rating, fire rating, combustible is external, and all of these. Now in Revit, you have some of them by default. They are going to be, you can find them here in the edit type. Like let's say, for example, IFC parameters. You don't have so much into here. You have the thermal resistance, which is already here. And it also depends on the template that you're using. Okay, this template has a thermal resistance and has a fire rating here. Yeah, you can check like this what is already from these parameters existing in the file. When you're missing something, you can add it, like for example, let's say here in the documentation, we have this, what did I read, acoustic rating. And you might need this, like the project requirements might be set that the wall needs this particular parameter. So you're gonna have to add it to Revit. You can copy it exactly how it's named here in the documentation. Or I'm gonna start by how to add it and then you can copy it. Okay, you go to Manage. And then you have here the project information, and then under these settings, you can find here the global parameters, or the project parameters actually. You can click into project parameters. And if you're here, you can find this option here, new parameter. We did this same thing in the first class, I think. And once you click into this new parameter, this window will open. The parameter properties window will open. Does anybody need me to repeat this, or?
Did you press new?
Yeah. I pressed new. And once you're in the parameter properties table, you're gonna have to the right, you have the categories, where you choose that you want to add a property for a wall category. So here we can find wall and ticket. We have to add a name, and the name is the acoustic rating, which we just saw. And then you have to specify whether you want to add it to the whole type of walls or you want to add it to an instance. We don't want to add it to just this wall, particular wall, but we want to add it to the type. You can, the discipline, you can leave it like this, common, and then the type of parameter, you have to make sure that the type of parameter is also specified just like in this documentation. So when it comes to acoustic rating, the value here is IFC label. IFC label means just text value. So we will go here and find text. And we have to group the parameter under. You can you can just maybe type IFC and we want to group it under IFC parameters.
Can you do this again, please?
Yeah. Acoustic rating. You have to name this, as I said, exactly as it is named in the documentation of the IFC wall. We chose acoustic rating, so you can copy this and then paste it there in the name. I said that it's important to choose that we want it to be a type, assigned to the type, and it's important the type of parameter here to be text, because in the documentation it's set as IFC label, and we want it to be grouped under IFC parameters. Okay, I hope you are being able to follow. And under categories, make sure that you're assigning it to the walls. Once you have filled this out, you can click OK. And now we have here is showing this new parameter that we just created, which has acoustic rating. We can click OK again. Now when we go into a wall, we should have this under IFC parameters, which for some reason is not
You
true.
had text inside.
Yeah?
Yeah, it changed text for some reason.
Yes, it's under here, but I am searching for it. It should be grouped under IFC parameters. I guess that,
Oh no, I just saw in that dialog field you had layers instead of IFC parameters.
yeah. We can go and find it again here. Manage. Okay, this time it will also be a repetition for all of you. You can go to edit parameter. And okay, I've clicked scroll, I guess by mistake. IFC parameters. Make sure that you have it like this. And then you can click OK. So I just went into editing this parameter. And we can go again and check. It should be okay now. Okay, thank you. And here it is under IFC parameters, acoustic rating. Yeah. I just edited the parameter that I just added. So you go here under Manage tab, and then under Project Parameters, you can select what you want to edit. In this case, it's acoustic rating, and you click on Edit Parameter. But you might not need to edit this if you've already added here IFC parameter as I told you. And then you click OK, and that's it. Okay, that's how you add a new parameter. Same thing can be done with other missing parameters that you have here in the documentation. You might be required to add load bearing. You just make sure that you set the value into Boolean, which means a yes or no. And where it's an identifier, it has to be a number. So that's how you add properties. In cases, you might need to add also properties in another language, like for example in German. And I can get back to that a bit later, how you fix then the mapping into IFC. Okay, now let's see, for example, how to maybe create a schedule of properties. So this, you have, let's say you have added properties one by one, and now you want to make sure that you have a property set that is named exactly like this, pset wall common. To have that, you can do that through schedules. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. You can go under View, and then you have here Schedules, and then Schedule Quantities. View, Schedules, Schedule Quantities. Once you click on that, you have this dialog of adding new schedule. Now you can search that you want to make this schedule for the walls, since we're now dealing with the wall. And yes. And we want to name it as pset wall common. You leave this schedule building component, and the phase you leave it to new.
What's the name? It's very small.
The name of it is pSetWallCommon. I copied the name again from the documentation. And then you can click OK. Now here you can choose from the properties that you've just created in the previous step, or from the properties that already exist in the Revit document. You can choose what you want to be added to this pSet that you are creating now. Here, let's go, for example, let's add the acoustic rating that we created, and you can go checking with the documentation what has to be there. For example, is the external, load bearing, fire rating, and then we can find them here. For example, acoustic rating, let's add it. Let's add fire rating that I see here. This is experimental, so you don't have to add exactly all of these. We're just checking how would that be done. So fire rating, let's say something. Let's say that you want to have also the volume there, or the width. This IFC grid, what this means is that it's a value or a number which is specific to each element. So let's say maybe you want to see that in the IFC, and then you can just add also this heat transfer coefficient. Maybe you might need it for certain uses of the IFC file. And then you can add these ones, export to IFC and export type to IFC, just because maybe through this schedule you want to prove if these are being set right from each category. Then at the end you can edit the schedule and remove them again. Okay, let's say we have chosen some of the things that we want to have. If you are in this step, not necessarily all of them, you maybe chose something else, it's okay. You can then click OK. And this is how we have created a schedule that is called pSetWallCommon. On the next steps, I'm going to show you how we export the file, and then we can see how we can export this particular schedule as a property set like we have created it. Okay, so as you see, some of the values, let's say for acoustic rating, which we just added now, are not filled. So you might have to fill them, because if you just export like this, the file, then it won't show it at all, because it's actually empty. So when something is left as empty, it will not be exported. Therefore, you need to make sure that you fill them out. If everybody managed to do this,
How can I add stuff afterwards? Edit the schedule and add new parameters. If I forgot width, for example.
I don't really, can you just repeat it again?
I'm missing one column, for example, acoustic rating. How can I add it now?
Yeah. You can just, under other here, you have fields,
Yes.
and you can click on edit,
Perfect.
and then you can remove one of them if you want. To remove one of the fields, just click on the particular one you want to remove, and press this red arrow, and then add something else. And you can click on OK. And you can also filter here, and you can filter by, like, in different ways. You can choose to filter from a particular element. This might be useful if you're actually filling this out, or you can also sort, yeah?
I don't have any of the like the titles in my schedule properties. When I
Yeah? Okay, you're all good. We can proceed. So as I was saying, you can also sort this schedule, and you can, let's say, You want to sort by acoustic rating, and you want to make it descending, yeah, stuff like that. I don't think there is something else that you should keep in mind here. You have the fields, the filter, the sorting, yeah. This is all just helpful for you to edit the schedule. Once you are done editing the schedule, you, let's say, now want to deal with exporting some properties, and also because of time, I would proceed into showing you how you export now the file, because I think that's important as well. Okay. You can go to the 3D view, and now let's say you want to export this whole view or the whole model. You can do both. You can export just a particular view or whatever you see, all the elements that you see in this view, or the whole model. Why is that important? Is that sometimes maybe you have created 3D views. In one of them you have removed the furniture, and one of them has also the furniture, and you might want to export one of them. Okay, to do that you can go into File, Export, and IFC. We also worked here earlier for those who are using 25 to explain the mapping table. So you just click in IFC, and then now here what you can do is that you can just, what you have here, current selected setup, what this is, it's basically the version of IFC that you want to export into, and the model view definition decides it. Now the version is, we have been commonly using the IFC 2x3 because it's supported by many programs now. It is new, what is new is IFC 4, which is the, like, when it comes to IFC 4, you can choose the reference view from architecture, structural, building service, let's say. And there is also IFC 4.3 probably for those who are using Revit 25, since 4.3 is very new, but I think it's experimental in Revit 25. But the difference between 4.3 and 2x3, let's say, is that in 4.3 there is also more IFC entities that are recognized by Revit, except for the IFC building. There is also IFC infrastructure or IFC road or stuff like this. For you, it's important now to just see how it works, let's say, for IFC 2x3, Coordination View 2.0. You can choose that one, and you can just click on Export. But if you do that, you don't really have an idea of what is being exported. If you want to check what is being exported, you just can go here into, sorry, I can repeat this again, Modify Setup, and then into Property Sets. You cannot edit this, but you can just see that only the IFC common property sets will be exported. Now this will work. You will still get an IFC file that has some properties, but maybe not exactly what you want. Okay, so maybe if you have made those changes, you have created a schedule, you have added new properties that won't come here. So you want to maybe choose this in session setup, and then go to Modify Setup. If you click on Modify Setup, then you can choose the IFC version that you will be using. Again, it's the same way like we did earlier. You want this setup to be based in one of the versions, and let's say we want it to be based in IFC 2x3, Coordination View 2.0. And then here you don't have to change something. The file type is IFC, the phase to export, we have not worked with phases in this case, so you just keep it default. The phases are something that if someone is interested, we can explain more in depth. In this case, you just set it to default. And then you can go here into property sets. And then you see what is being exported. So in this case, we have it ticked only the IFC common property sets will be exported. But if you choose to maybe also export base quantities, what are base quantities are basically the width, the depth, the height, all of these quantities that are set to each element. Sometimes if it's a floor, it will also have the area. so maybe you want also these base quantities to be exported. And then if you want to export Revit property sets, I wouldn't really recommend it, because if you do this, everything that is in Revit, as we saw, will be exported, and that's not so relevant to the IFC documentation in cases Revit has some other stuff that you don't want to be exported. And it's important to note here that this is the option that you can choose if you want to export schedules as property sets. Now we have created a schedule that says IFC wall common, and that schedule will now be exported and will be added to the IFC wall common property set. So if you use schedules to do this, and it's easier for you to work with schedules, and make sure to tick this once you export. And now, this is also important because you might want to tick this as well, because it says export only schedules containing IFC, PSET, or common in the title. What this means is that if you don't click this, you might have schedules for rooms or some other schedules that you've created for some other reason. Like last time we checked this schedule for the list of rooms or so, and if you click this and you have already named the schedule IFC wall common, like we did, based on this one here, that's exactly why we name it like this, then that will be for sure exported. Now what is also here something else is that you can also export user-defined property sets in Revit. This is a bit more specific, and to do this you have to prepare a text file. I can just mention maybe when is this necessary. Like as I said earlier, some people might need to add these properties in German language, and if you add them in German language, then you have to make sure that they are mapped into this, since the IFC documentation is all in English only, they have to be mapped to the English word for it. For example, you have created a property that is named, I don't know, for example, how do you say compartmentation? It's maybe a hard word to use for some people, and who are using, like, let's say, who need to work in German, and then I think the word for it is like Randabschnitt or something like this. You have created a property like that, and you want to map it into this, you have to create such text file. Now these text files are really simple. I can show you an option of, an example of how they look. So this text file basically would have PSET wall common, tab, compartmentation, Randabschnitt, and it will be just like this. Yeah. And you would just be adding it like this basically for everything that you need to remap. For you, might be not really important, so we're not going depth into it, but if you choose to do that, that's how you add it into the export. And then you can also set the level of detail here. Usually you don't really need a high level of detail, to be honest. You need a low or medium, because anyway the export usually takes time. Whatever you are exporting tends to take time, so you want it to be either low or medium. Something else that maybe is important is here under additional content. You might want to, as I said, export only elements visible in this view. So whatever we see here in this 3D, only that will be exported. Otherwise, if you don't click that, the whole model will be exported. And then you can also choose to export linked files or 2D plans with elements. Yeah, in this case, we want it all to be exported, so we don't have to choose something there. And yeah, I mentioned the level of detail. These are some advanced settings that the name already tells what they mean, so I don't have to go into them.
Wait, sorry. So if we don't select anything, it selects everything.
You mean in the additional content? No, what we're saying here is if you want to export selected things, like something in particular, like only the 2D plans, or only elements visible in this view, that's what you specify. If you don't specify that you want just this, then the whole model will be exported, so yeah. So you can just click here, OK, with the settings that you've created, and you can click on export, and that's basically, then you will get the export file. Right now we can click on it, but it will take time to be created. And once you have created the file, it's always good if you do test exports and then you open it in a viewer. A viewer that is recommended, maybe it's from Solibri, because you also will get licenses for that, and we will explain to you how to use Solibri in the next sessions. So there we will know how to view this file that you have created, and then if something is not visible, you can go back to Revit and change that again and export again. Yeah. Also another viewer is maybe BIM Collab Zoom, but there you can just see the file, and it's also free for use. Okay, that's it I think from my side. If you have questions, feel free to ask.